Hi, I'm Angel Peterson from AllFreeSewing.com, and I'm here in the AllFreeSewing studios, and today we are talking patterns, digital and traditional patterns. What's the difference? Find out. Alright, so you've gotten into sewing and you see that there's digital patterns online and there's traditional patterns in the store, and you're like, what's the difference? What works? Do I treat them both the same? Well, we're going to talk about that because they are actually slightly different creatures, but in the end you get the same result. Alright, so first we're going to talk about the traditional pattern, and this pattern envelope, this is actually what we're using in our sew along. And if you open it up, you'll have these contents inside, but you also have a lot of important information on the back, and you're going to have information as to what fabric you'll need, what notions you'll need, and that's stuff besides fabric, those kinds of things, and you'll need to pay attention to that. Inside you have the instructions and the pattern, and the instructions are on heavier paper and the pattern's on this tissue paper. Now the instructions just tell you everything you need to know. The paper, when you unfold it, and pay attention how you unfold it, it's just this tissue paper. And you'll have the entire pattern out on it. And sometimes you'll have several sheets depending on how complicated the pattern is. But here's where you will basically get your pattern pieces and cut it out. You'll need to be very careful because, yes, it can tear, and you can punch a hole in it and it can ruin your pattern. So be careful when you lay it out, and you can see all your pattern pieces there. And what you'll do is you'll just take your scissors and cut it out. And some people don't like to use their sewing scissors even on tissue paper. I do, because it's not going to dull it nearly as much as regular paper. And so you're going to just kind of cut out your pattern and get going with it. Now, it's a little bit cumbersome, and sometimes you can't find the exact pattern that you want. Or maybe you're like, I don't want to go to the store with all my screaming kids, I want my pattern now. Well, you can actually download several patterns digitally. Now, the interesting thing about this particular pattern is that there's actually the traditional pattern and the digital pattern. So I can kind of show you the differences between those. Now, with the digital pattern, you're going to go online to simplicity.com and you're going to order your pattern. Some digital patterns, depending on the pattern house and who you're getting it from, like from me, you don't need special software, but from them you need special software in order to download and see the pattern. So you'll need to install that on your computer. A couple other things you need to be aware of is that, of course, this is a huge sheet of paper, and this is what you're going to print it up on, right? This is the traditional size, or I should say in America. In the other countries, there's different sizes of paper. So when you download it, you're going to need to tell it what size of paper they're dealing with, so you get the right size. But the other thing you need to be aware of when you download a pattern is you need to make sure that your printer is printing it to scale. And this is huge. This is so important when it comes to a digital pattern, is you need to be able to make sure that an inch, that what the designer considers an inch is also what is coming out of your printer is an inch. And so you'll print up this test pattern and you'll measure it to make sure that your patterns are printing to scale. One thing I will tell you, that if you print off a pattern in your internet browser, they have a tendency to mess with the sizing, so always download the pattern completely and then print it off from your computer. Just something I figured out along the way. Now, you'll have to assemble the pattern, and you'll notice different pattern houses and different people have different ways of putting it together. I have bars on the side that you line up. This particular pattern, you have these rectangles that you'll need to line up. And I actually recommend taking regular scissors, not your sewing shears, to it, and you're just going to want to trim off the side because there's an area where your printer can't print. You're going to trim that off, and then what you'll do is you'll line up the pattern. You can see how that lines up. Try to do the best you can with it. There we go. And you're just going to tape it with regular old tape. And it's important that you double check and keep it that way, because then you're going to start messing with sizing and lines and things like that. Then you're going to completely cut out the pattern using your regular scissors, not your sewing shears, because this paper will dull it. Now, there are advantages to a digital pattern. For example, on Simplicity's site, you can download it up to 3 times in a year from your purchase date, which is great. The other nice thing is that because it's on such stiff paper, It doesn't tear as easily as the tissue paper. It stores a lot longer. I like to fold mine up and store them in these big 12 by 12 plastic envelopes that are usually used for scrapbooking. That's how I like to store my digital patterns at home. So I'll just finish cutting this out, and this is pretty much the exact same pattern, okay? Just a little bit stiffer paper. Now, as you can see, and I've got an example right here, this is one of the pieces to our pattern. So here's the digital one that I assembled earlier, and here's the traditional one. Yep, look at that. Same pattern. So it doesn't really matter which one that you prefer to use. The fact of the matter is, at the end, you'll get the same result. But each one has their special things that you need to be aware of to take care of it, and so you'll get a good project in the end. So whether it's digital or traditional, either way, it's fun. Do you use mostly traditional or digital patterns? Let us know in the comments below. Also, a thumbs up for our hard work is always appreciated. And be sure to subscribe to AllFreeSewing's YouTube channel for more great videos like this one.